This stopped being your firm the night you tried to destroy me.
I'm Jake, 42, self-made tech entrepreneur. Started with nothing, built a company from basement startup to multi-million-dollar empire while everyone else was figuring out email. Met my wife, Sarah, during her last year at law school. She was brilliant, passionate about justice, had big dreams about changing the legal world. I fell hard. Sarah always talked about opening her own firm. Not just any firm. She wanted something that mattered, that would make a real difference. As her loving, supportive husband, I figured why not help make her dreams come true? I had the money. She had the vision. Perfect partnership, right? Wrong. So damn wrong. Over 2 years, I bankrolled everything. Initial seed money, office lease on Madison Avenue with mahogany everything and Chrysler building views, state-of-the-art computer systems, hiring bonuses for hotshot lawyers they poached from white shoe firms, marketing, furniture, you name it. $20 million. Yeah, you read that correctly. $20 million. But here's where I wasn't completely stupid. Every single transaction was documented as business investments, not marital gifts. Loan agreements, partnership structures, performance clauses, the works. My lawyer, Patricia, thought I was being paranoid. "It's your wife, Jake," she said. "You trust her, right?" I did trust her. That was my first mistake. The launch party for Williams & Cross LLP was scheduled for a Saturday evening in November at the Grand Ballroom of the Hilton Manhattan East. Sarah had been planning this event for months. It was going to be her grand debut as a major player in New York's legal scene. 500 guests, including judges, senior partners from competing firms, journalists from legal publications, and basically everyone who mattered in Manhattan legal circles. The venue was absolutely spectacular. Crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than most people's cars, marble floors polished to mirror perfection, champagne fountains that looked like they belonged in a Vegas casino, ice sculptures that were honestly works of art, past hors d'oeuvres that I'm pretty sure required advance reservations to eat anywhere else. The whole thing screamed, "We have arrived," in the loudest possible way. I showed up wearing my best Tom Ford suit, charcoal gray, tailored to perfection, with Italian leather shoes that could probably finance a decent used car. I was genuinely excited. This was supposed to be Sarah's moment, but it was also mine in a way. All that investment, all that support, all those late nights listening to her practice speeches and review business plans. It was finally paying off. The energy in the room was electric. You could practically smell the ambition mixed with expensive cologne and that particular brand of competitive tension that happens when you put a bunch of high-achieving lawyers in the same room. I recognized faces from newspaper articles and legal blogs, people whose names carried serious weight in New York's justice system. Judge Robert Cross, Sarah's father, was holding court near the bar with a cluster of other judges and senior attorneys. He caught my eye and raised his glass in acknowledgement. Still the intimidating figure who'd grilled me about my intentions when Sarah and I got engaged, but who'd eventually accepted me as part of the family. Derek Cross was working the room like a natural politician, shaking hands and making connections with the kind of smooth confidence that probably served him well in court. I spent the first hour doing what you do at these events, making small talk with people I recognized from other charity galas and business functions, accepting congratulations on Sarah's success, and generally playing the role of the supportive husband who made all this possible. It felt good, honestly. I was proud of what we'd built together. I'm making my way through the crowd, accepting congratulations, feeling pretty damn good about being the man behind the woman, when I hear this comment that stops me cold. Some young associate, probably still wet behind the ears, leans over to his buddy and says with a smirk, "Well, well, looks like the trial husband showed up." Trial husband. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I keep walking, keep smiling. You don't let some nobody in a cheap suit see you sweat. But inside, something cold and sharp is starting to twist. Sarah gets up to give her speech. She looks absolutely stunning. Dark hair in perfect updo, wearing the diamond necklace I bought her for our anniversary, the one that cost more than most people make in a year. She's glowing under those chandeliers, basking in congratulations from everyone who matters. "Ladies and gentlemen," she begins, voice carrying that smooth confidence she uses in court, "thank you for being here to celebrate the launch of Williams & Cross LLP. This firm represents everything I've worked for, everything I've dreamed of." The crowd murmurs appreciatively. Someone shouts, "Hear, hear!" Standard stuff for these events. But then Sarah does something that makes my blood freeze. She reaches into her Chanel clutch and pulls out a manila envelope. plain, unremarkable, the kind that could contain anything. However, she continues, and the temperature drops 10 degrees, before we officially open our doors, I have one piece of business to attend to. She walks down from the podium, heels clicking against marble like a countdown timer. Every step brings her closer. The crowd parts like the Red Sea. I can feel hundreds of eyes on me, hear whispers starting to buzz around the room like angry wasps. Sarah stops right in front of me, close enough that I can smell her Chanel Num 5. She's still smiling, but now I can see what that smile really is. It's not love or gratitude. It's pity mixed with satisfaction. "Jake," she says, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "You've been so generous, so supportive. I want everyone here to know that the first case Williams & Cross LLP will be handling is very close to my heart." She hands me the envelope like she's presenting an award at some twisted ceremony. "The first case for my law firm," she announces, turning back to address the crowd, "is my divorce. Jake, I need you to sign these papers and leave tonight." The words hang in the air like smoke from a tool barrel. For a moment, everything is perfectly silent. Then the applause starts, scattered at first, then growing louder. Some people are gasping. Others are filming with their phones, probably already uploading to social media. I'm standing there holding that envelope, feeling like the biggest fool who ever walked the earth. This is my money funding this party. These are my connections filling this room. I made this entire night possible. And now I'm being dismissed like hired help who overstayed their welcome. The humiliation should be crushing. 8 years of marriage, 2 years of supporting her dream firm, 20 million of my own money, all reduced to a manila envelope and public execution in front of everyone who matters in New York's legal community. But I don't shout. I don't throw the envelope back in her face. I don't cause the scene everyone's expecting. Instead, I do something that probably surprises everyone in that room. Maybe even myself. I fold that envelope in half, slide it into my jacket pocket, and walk toward the exit with my head held high. Outside, the New York night air hits my face like a blessing. I loosen my tie, let the cool breeze wash away the stuffiness of that overpriced hotel ballroom. And then, standing there on the sidewalk with city lights reflecting off wet pavement, I do something that would shock everyone still inside celebrating my public humiliation. I smile, not fake, but genuine. See, here's what Sarah and her slick partner Derek don't understand about Jake Miller. I didn't get where I am by being stupid. I didn't build a multi-million-dollar empire by trusting people at their word. And I sure as hell didn't survive in cutthroat business by not having contingency plans. They think they've won. They think this is the end of the story. Foolish husband gets played by ambitious wife and her business partner. They haven't seen anything yet. By the time I get back to my Upper East Side apartment, that clarity is burning through me like acid. I pour myself 3 fingers of Macallan 25, the good stuff I save for special occasions. Getting publicly divorced at your wife's law firm launch party definitely qualifies. I head straight to my study, past floor-to-ceiling windows offering million-dollar views of Central Park. Most people think the view makes this room special, but they're wrong. The real magic is behind the custom bookshelf where a hidden panel slides away to reveal my private safe. This isn't some dinky hotel safe. This is a proper vault. Fireproof, waterproof, big enough to hold everything that really matters. I punch in the code and the heavy door swings open. Inside, organized with obsessive precision, are my real assets. Not stocks or bonds. Those are for amateurs. These are documents that separate players from the played, hunters from the hunted. I pull out the first binder, thick as a phone book. Williams & Cross LLP, financial structure. Every page tells a story, and boy, is it a doozy. Here's what Sarah and Derek didn't understand about Jake Miller. I don't just throw money at things and hope for the best. When I invest, I document everything. When I write a check, I create paper trails that could be followed by a blind accountant. The first section shows initial seed money, $5 million transferred from my personal account to establish operating capital. Sarah thought it was a gift, a loving husband supporting his wife's dreams. In reality, it was a loan with very specific terms she never bothered reading. Next up, the office lease. That gorgeous corner suite on Madison Avenue costing $40,000 a month. Yeah, that's in my name. The lease agreement sits right here in black and white, along with the security deposit receipt for $200,000. I flip through more pages, each one a little insurance policy I never thought I'd need to cash in. Interior design costs. Another $250,000 for Sarah's vision of sophisticated legal elegance. The custom law library with first edition texts and hand-carved shelving. 6 figures. State-of-the-art computer system and case management software. Another 100 grand. But the real kicker is recruitment expenses. Sarah and Derek went on a hiring spree like they were building the legal equivalent of the Yankees. They poached senior associates from white shoe firms, offering signing bonuses and inflated salaries that would make Wall Street executives jealous. Every single offer was backed by my money, and every single contract includes clauses tying employment to the firm's financial stability. As I'm going through these documents, something starts bubbling up from deep in my chest. At first, I think it might be another wave of humiliation. But then I realize what it actually is. Laughter. Dark, bitter laughter that tastes like revenge served at room temperature. Because here's what's becoming crystal clear. I haven't been Sarah's husband for the past 2 years. I've been her bank. A walking, talking ATM with a wedding ring and joint checking account. Every dinner party where she introduced me as my husband Jake, the tech entrepreneur, she was really saying, my financier who doesn't understand law. Every time she asked my opinion on hiring decisions or office locations, she was just being polite while spending my money. Every passionate speech about building something meaningful, she was talking about building it on my dime while planning to cut me out. $20 million. That's the grand total when you add up every check, every wire transfer, every credit card payment I made to support Williams and Cross LLP. $20 million to fund my wife's affair and finance my own public humiliation. But here's where Sarah and Derek made their fatal mistake. They assumed I was just another rich guy who got successful by luck and stayed successful by throwing money at problems. They clearly never did their homework on how Jake Miller actually operates. Every single transaction was structured as business investment, not marital gift. Every contract includes performance clauses, accountability measures, and most importantly, exit strategies. Sarah never read the fine print because she was too busy planning her grand debut as New York's hottest new legal power couple. I close the binder and reach for the next one. Corporate structure and silent partner agreements. This is where things get really interesting. When you're putting $20 million into a startup law firm, even one run by your loving wife, you don't just write checks and hope for the best. You create legal structures that protect your investment. You establish yourself as silent partner with very specific rights and responsibilities. Rights like the ability to freeze corporate accounts if fiscal responsibility is questioned. Rights like mandatory disclosure of all major expenditures. Rights like unilateral withdrawal of invested capital under breach of fiduciary duty clauses. The beauty is that Sarah signed every single one of these agreements herself. She was so eager to get her hands on my money that she barely glanced at corporate documents. She probably assumed they were just legal boilerplate, paperwork you sign when your husband is being overly cautious about protecting assets. It's 2:47 a.m. when I crack my knuckles and open the firm's online banking portal. Sarah probably assumes I don't have access anymore, maybe even changed passwords in some amateur attempt at digital security. She always was too trusting, too willing to believe people are exactly what they appear to be. But here's the thing about being the guy who bankrolled the entire operation. You make sure you always have a way in. Those credentials I memorized when we first set up corporate accounts still work perfectly. The backup email tied to password recovery? That's my personal Gmail, not Sarah's. I'm in the system within 30 seconds, and what I see makes me smile for the first time since that disaster at the Hilton. The account balance shows exactly what I expected. $847,000 in operating capital sitting in the main business checking account. There's also the money market account with another $1.2 million in reserve funds, and the expense account Derek's been using to fund his and Sarah's business dinners. This is going to be fun. I start with smallest moves first, financial adjustments that won't trigger immediate red flags, but will definitely cause interesting conversations come Monday morning. The automatic payment system handling monthly expenses, office lease, utilities, cleaning service, coffee suppliers, gets a little adjustment. Not canceled, just temporarily suspended due to account verification requirements. Next up, vendor payments. That fancy catering company that provided tonight's champagne fountain and caviar service? Their invoice payment just got frozen pending financial review. The florist who created elaborate centerpieces? Same deal. Every single vendor who contributed to my public humiliation just got moved to payment pending status. But the real masterpiece is the payroll system. All those hotshot lawyers Sarah and Derek poached from competing firms, the ones with signing bonuses and six-figure salaries, their direct deposit information just encountered a small technical glitch that will require manual resolution. Nothing permanent, just a temporary hiccup that might make their mortgage payments interesting this month. But the real coup de grace is still coming. I navigate to the investment management section where the crown jewel of my financial architecture sits waiting, my silent partner withdrawal clause. It's buried in subsection 7.3 of the corporate partnership agreement, the part that Sarah's lawyer probably skimmed over because it looked like standard boilerplate language. What it actually says, in very precise legal terminology, is that any partner who contributed more than 75% of the firm's initial capitalization has the right to immediate asset recovery in the event of material breach of fiduciary responsibility. $20 million in funding, Sarah's public divorce announcement at the firm's launch party, Derek's smirk as he watched me get handed those papers. I'd say that qualifies as material breach of just about everything. The final screen is beautiful. Withdrawal request submitted. Funds will be transferred within 24 to 48 business hours. Below that, $20 million. $20 million about to disappear from Williams & Cross LLP's accounts like morning mist in summer sun. Monday morning hits New York like a freight train. My phone has been buzzing since 6:30 a.m. Sarah with 47 missed calls and counting. Derek with 12 calls, board members, investors, vendors whose names I recognize from the expensive party they threw Saturday night. I ignore every single one. My doorman calls at exactly 10 a.m. Mr. Miller, there's a young lady here from the law firm, says it's urgent. Sophie Lang, Sarah's assistant. Fresh out of college, probably making 30 grand a year to fetch coffee and manage calendars. When I finally let her up, Sophie looks like she's been through a blender set on corporate nightmare. Her usually perfect blonde hair is a messy bun, makeup smudged like she's been crying. Everything's collapsing, she says. The payroll system crashed this morning. Nobody got paid. Vendors are calling nonstop saying their payments were rejected. The catering company is threatening to sue. Even the coffee service got cut off. Do you know how lawyers function without coffee, Mr. Miller? I hand Sophie a cream-colored envelope with my terms inside. Give this to Sarah personally. She has exactly 24 hours to respond. Tell her this is the only offer she'll get. The next conversation won't be nearly as pleasant. Friday morning, I'm walking into Williams & Cross LLP for what's about to be the most satisfying business meeting of my career. The conference room that once hosted champagne toasts now looks like a war room staffed by people who've already lost. Sarah sits at the head of the table looking like she hasn't slept since our conversation. Her usually perfect appearance has been replaced by frazzled desperation. Most telling detail, the empty chair where Derek should be sitting. Where's your partner? I ask. Derek is indisposed, Sarah says carefully. Personal issues since Monday? Personal issues. That's polite for nervous breakdown brought on by sudden realization that he's been screwing someone else's wife while spending someone else's money. I spread documents across the mahogany table. Partnership dissolution agreements, asset recovery forms, employment termination notices, and my restructuring proposal. These are my conditions for continued operation of this firm. My terms are simple. Sarah resigns from all leadership roles but can stay as basic counsel. Derek gets fired with no severance and a 5-year non-compete. I take controlling interest and 2 board seats. The firm gets renamed Miller Legal Partners. Sarah's hands shake as she picks up the pen. If I sign this, I'll be nothing more than an employee in my own firm. Sarah, this stopped being your firm the moment you decided to serve me divorce papers at a party I paid for. When she finally signs, the pen scratches across paper like fingernails on a chalkboard. One by one, the other partners follow suit. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. Instead of just destroying Sarah's legal empire, I decided to build something better. 2 weeks later, I find myself in a converted townhouse in Brooklyn at Phoenix Legal Collective, a scrappy organization doing real legal aid work. Their leader, Lydia Torres, is this fierce young lawyer who cares more about justice than profit margins. They handle wrongful evictions, immigration rights, class action suits against landlords who think heat is optional in January. They're broke, but doing work that actually matters. What would you do with $10 million? I ask. Lydia doesn't hesitate. Expand to all 5 boroughs. Hire 20 more attorneys. Create training programs for law students who want to do public interest work, but can't afford unpaid internships. Change the game so having a corporate legal team doesn't automatically mean you win. I write out a check for $10 million, not a loan with complicated terms, just seed money for someone who wants to fight the good fight. Mr. Miller, she says, staring at the check like it might disappear, you've just saved us. No, I tell her, you've saved me. I've been so busy playing corporate games that I forgot what it feels like to invest in something that actually matters. The devastation was swift. By Monday evening, Williams and Cross LLP had gone from rising star to cautionary tale. The legal newspapers picked up the story within hours, and by Wednesday, it had made national business publications. Tech entrepreneur systematically dismantles wife's law firm after public divorce humiliation captured everyone's imagination. Sarah released a statement, not the sanitized PR version she'd originally wanted, but an honest accounting of what had actually happened. She admitted to making personal choices that compromised her professional judgment, acknowledged that I had funded the firm's entire operation, and accepted full responsibility for the decisions that led to the firm's financial crisis. The reaction from the legal community was fascinating. About half the responses were, "She had it coming," while the other half questioned whether my actions were appropriate business practices or vindictive overreach. Law schools started using the case as a teaching example in business ethics courses. But the most interesting development came 3 weeks later. I started getting calls from law school deans wanting me to guest lecture, bar associations asking me to serve on ethics committees, and nonprofits looking for board members who understood both business principles and legal accountability. Instead of being the vengeful ex-husband, I was increasingly seen as someone who demonstrated how proper documentation and ethical business practices could protect all parties in complex professional relationships. The legal community was viewing this as a masterclass in investment protection rather than personal drama. That's when I started thinking about what comes next. Revenge was satisfying but not sustainable. I'd proven my point, protected my investment, and reestablished my reputation. But what was I actually going to build with all this restored credibility? The answer came during a guest lecture at Columbia Law School. A student asked what I thought was the biggest problem with legal services in America. Without thinking, I answered, "Most people who need lawyers can't afford them, and most lawyers spend their time on work that doesn't actually help people." That led to a conversation with Dr. Rebecca Chen, an ethics professor who'd been following my case. She mentioned a legal aid organization in Brooklyn doing innovative work, but struggling with funding. "They're the opposite of Williams and Cross," she said. "All substance, no flash, and about 6 weeks from closing their doors. Phoenix Legal Collective occupied a converted townhouse in Brooklyn that looked like it had been decorated from garage sales, but the energy was electric. Their director, Lydia Torres, was this fierce woman in her early 30s, who showed me around their cramped offices where case files were stacked everywhere and whiteboards covered with strategy notes. "We handle about 40 cases at any given time," she explained. "Wrongful evictions, immigration rights, wage theft, class action suits against landlords who think heat is optional. The kind of cases big firms won't touch because clients can't pay premium rates." She showed me a bulletin board covered with thank you letters and hand-drawn pictures from kids whose families hadn't been evicted because of their work. When I asked what she could do with serious funding, she didn't talk about expensive office space or prestigious hires. She wanted to expand to all 5 boroughs, create training programs for law students who couldn't afford unpaid internships, and establish legal clinics where people could get real advice. "We're not trying to get rich, Mr. Miller," she said. "We're trying to level the playing field so having money isn't the only thing that determines whether you get justice." I wrote her a check for $10 million, not a loan with complicated terms, just seed money for someone who wanted to fight the good fight. "You've just saved us," she said, staring at the check. "No," I told her. "You've saved me." I forgot what it feels like to invest in something that actually matters. 6 months later, Phoenix Legal has offices in 3 boroughs, hired 37 new attorneys, and won a class action settlement worth $43 million against a property management company illegally charging fees to over 2,000 tenants. I'm teaching 2 courses at Columbia on entrepreneurial finance and business ethics. My story became a case study taught at law schools nationwide, not as vindictive revenge, but as proper documentation, protecting everyone in complex professional relationships. Rebecca and I have been dating 4 months. She's brilliant, funny, genuinely passionate about legal reform. We have dinner conversations about constitutional law like other couples talk about movies. It's the intellectual partnership I didn't realize I'd been missing. Sarah moved to Portland and works at a nonprofit immigration clinic. She wrote saying she's never been happier professionally, that she finally understands the difference between being respected and being famous. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's another performance. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. The best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something so good that their betrayal becomes irrelevant, so meaningful that their opinion stops mattering, so successful that their failure becomes just background noise in your much more interesting story. Phoenix Legal recently took on a case against a major healthcare corporation, systematically denying coverage to low-income patients. The preliminary settlement discussions are already in 8 figures. Next month, I'm keynoting a conference on legal innovation at Harvard Law School. Sometimes karma takes her sweet time, but when she finally arrives, she doesn't just bring justice. She brings receipts, compound interest, and a completely rewritten ending to a story everyone thought they already knew.